This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is going on, everyone? Happy Monday to you all. I hope you had a good weekend. Although the weather sure was bizarre. We had a weather delay in the Bomber game, a weather delay in the Valor home opener yesterday, an extended one. It's kind of a crazy boomer that came through this afternoon. And of course, the Goldeyes were at home dealing with the weather as well. The only team on our local scene that ended up unscathed is the Sea Bears, who had a great win at home on Saturday night. And of course, they play indoors. But it's very nice outside today. I would suggest you enjoy it. Maybe head down to the ballpark tonight. Just looking ahead, we do have some nice weather for next weekend. But considering the potential rain tomorrow and Wednesday, I think tonight's the night to get to the ballpark to enjoy what is actually a very nice little spring day. Could be a little bit warmer. It does look like we're going to get warmer on the weekend, kind of 25, 26. Been a minute since we've been right there. But as I mentioned, there was a lot going on in the local scene today. If you haven't already, check out the channel or the podcast. Connor Rabchak, who did such a great job all season long of doing our Jets This Week Monday updates, is now doing kind of a summer WST weekly, focusing in on the latest on the Bombers, the Sea Bears, Goldeyes, and now, of course, with Valor FC back at home, Valor as well. We'll touch on all of that. Obviously, we do have a Stanley Cup Final set. It will be the Florida Panthers with Paul Maurice and Stenny going up against the Edmonton Oilers. Canada's team, well, that's up to all of you. I still think there's a lot of people that have a very hard time cheering for the Edmonton Oilers, and probably a lot of people that are still big fans of Paul Maurice and would love to see him get a ring. Probably some others on the other side of that as well. But, man, it should be a great, great series. We're going to get to that coming up. Dennis Bernstein on the end of the conference finals, the upcoming cup final, as well as some news around the National Hockey League as we get closer to getting to Vegas, in 3 weeks for the NHL draft. And we'll have a lot of time this week to get ready for the cup final because it does not start until Saturday. But that's fine. The next few days, we're going to be all over Bombers and the opening of the Canadian Football League season. Home opener, Princess Auto Stadium, coming up on Thursday in the Grey Cup rematch between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Montreal Alouettes. Jeff Hamilton will jump on the program today as well. We're going to look ahead to the season, both for the Bombers and around the league with Jeff, and a little more on the Cup Final with a trip out to South Florida. Bill Lindsay, former Panther and Panther broadcaster, will sort of give us the Panthers side of things coming out of their series win against the New York Rangers and looking ahead to the matchup against Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. We'll get to Coolbet Lines for tonight, a little slower, but big series for the Jays getting going tonight against the Baltimore Orioles, which we'll touch on. And, of course, Assiniboia Downs is back, and so are our picks. Remis and I, at the end of the program, will dive into our favorite selections from the card as we continue our season-long handicapping contest. Just before we bring in Reem, welcome to everyone with us live on YouTube right now. Shout out to podcast listeners making us a part of your day. And a big thanks to the WST sponsors that make this show possible, including Rolly's Transfer, Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, Hoagie Boys, The Winnipeg Goldeyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend. We'll certainly get to the RBC Canadian Open as well. What a tournament that was. Canadian Club, Little Brown Jug, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and of course we'll get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, what's up? How are you?
Yeah, feeling good. Getting ready. Cup final. I'm so pumped for it. Too bad we have to wait until Saturday for this great matchup here. But yeah, it's June, summer, CFL week starting up Thursday. I'm pumped about it. My weekends will be booked solid.
Yeah, well, you know what? The weekends, yes, of course, you're in birthday party season, right? That's why your weekends.
I had like 4 on the weekend.
Like multiple. How many in one day? Was it just 2 and 2?
3
2
yesterday.
doubleheaders?
3. And we had to navigate through that rain. It was tough.
How are the kids by the third birthday party?
They're ready to go.
How much cake have they had?
My kids don't eat cake.
Sugar high?
They don't like cake. They don't like. Son doesn't like treats. We like try to like give him. Do you want cake? No. They're too busy playing. Do you want candy?
Do you have any snap peas?
No. I don't know if he ate any. Maybe a piece of pizza.
Well, we navigated through, not 4 birthday parties, but, as I mentioned right off the top, a really busy weekend. I know it's preseason for the Bombers, and none of the starters were playing, and a lot of people took off when that weather rolled in. And, of course, the Goldeyes were playing at home. They continue to play well. Big win yesterday, just thumping their opponents, opening up a new series tonight. And a great win for the Sea Bears, comfortably winning. I think 13 was the final number. Another great atmosphere and crowd down at Canada Life Center. And man, the team that just hasn't been able to catch a break continues to not catch a break. They actually had a nice crowd. I believe the tickets out for the Valor game were 4,200 for the home opener. The game was supposed to start at 3 o'clock and ended up starting at basically 6. Because of the inclement weather that rolled through. However, shout out to the lads because they do pick up a big 2-0 win. Ed Tate was all over that, actually. If you do want some highlights and more, go to Ed Tate's, and of course, Ed writing for it over for the Valor FC. But right now, Remo, obviously we're going to talk hockey, but Bombers back at practice today. We're going to get into it with Jeff Hamilton. But some nice news from Bomber practice today in that many of the individuals that we had not seen as of late are back, including Brady Oliveira working with the Bomber offense today.
Yeah, Ed Tate and Derek Taylor on X reporting on some of this. And just back to that preseason game. I don't think there's too much you can take away when you're not playing any of the guys who are going to be playing on Thursday. 31-10 loss to Calgary. Sparse crowd, rain delay didn't help. The one highlight, 109-yard punt return. We're talking about who's going to step in for Janarian Grant. Chris Smith has this great play, gets injured, and they cut him yesterday. So back to the drawing board there. I did notice that A.K. Gasama from the Bisons, who we had on the show, he was also cut yesterday, but talking about who's there, Brady Oliveira back working with the offense, and Eric Lofton at right tackle, Liam Dobson back at guard after what he was taking in snaps. He was at center for the last game. And Brandon Alexander, he's back at safety as well. So a couple big veteran guys that we hadn't seen making their way back. And as we get ready for the home opener, season opener, Thursday against the defending Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, I know, but I cannot wait for Thursday to get back to Princess Auto Stadium for a meaningful game, and Bomber fans are going to be ready to go, and you just hope the team is ready to go. That's the biggest question: can you come in and play a legitimate your best in a regular season when half these guys didn't do anything during training camp? Never mind not play in the preseason. So fingers crossed on that. We'll jump on it with Jeff Hamilton a little bit later on today. But let's quickly get to the Cup Final. I don't think it's much of a surprise that Florida's come through. They were clearly the better team throughout that entire series. They ended up getting it done at home in 6 games. But holy smokes, man, what a turnaround by the Edmonton Oilers. When you consider it was a week today in Game 3, was down at Boston Pizza City Place when we were giving away that trip to the Cup Final. And the Edmonton Oilers started well and then got absolutely caved in. We're down 2-1 in the series. They had blown their home ice advantage. And I think there was a lot of thoughts that, if they didn't get a win in game number 4, that they might be done in 5. They completely flipped the script. Starting in game 4, going down early, coming back the way they did, and they never looked back. Despite being outshot 35-10 last night in game 6, they're on their way to the Cup Final.
Really shocked by this, Huss, especially the way that Dallas outshot Edmonton. It was just wave after wave. But the Stars' goal scoring dried up here over the last 3 games. Game 4, 2 goals in the 5-2 loss. Game 5, 1 goal in the 3-1 loss. And last night they had another game with 1 goal. You're not going to win scoring 1 goal, and the power play completely dried up. And I do wonder how much of Edmonton had a tough 7-game series against Vancouver, so I don't know if this theory even applies, but Stars had a very tough 7-game series against Vegas, a tough matchup against Colorado. They just looked like I don't know if they forgot how to play hockey. Nothing was smooth. Nothing was crisp. Handling the puck didn't, it seemed like it was such a chore. I don't know. They just didn't look very sharp. And I don't know if that's just me watching and seeing hey, these guys having trouble just completing a basic pass. But I mean, look, they outshot them. They outplayed them. They should have won. We should be getting game 7 here, but we're not because Edmonton has Connor McDavid, and you can make something out of nothing with him. I mean, takes one chance highlight reel goal we're going to be watching forever, where he dangles, turnstiles Miro Heiskanen, who you pegged as the Conn Smythe favorite for a while, and with the nifty backhand in, that got it started, and there was Zach Hyman on the power play, and it was a game of special teams.
From
Oilers
distance.
Yeah, from distance. He can do that. He's got that club in his bag.
The longest skill he's ever scored in his career.
But it was special teams. The Edmonton penalty kill, perfect. And the power play, always elite, always a threat to score. And it was funny hearing Bieksa. I love this post game they do with Ivanka and Ken. And he was saying the Oilers, how do you prepare for this Oilers power play? Is there any other guy like Leon Draisaitl who can hit bar down top corner from the goal line?
From the craziest angles.
Yeah, from the crazy, Zach Hyman in front of the net. McDavid doing, whatever he can do that nobody else can. This Oilers team, they got some elite players. I've questioned their depth, questioned their goaltending, but they got it done, and they're going to be playing for the Cup against Florida. So congrats to them, because they proved me wrong, that's for sure.
Well, a lot of people wrong. They were underdogs in the series, and they deserved it. And this is what it comes down to. I mean, listen, when McDavid scored that goal last night, in the fashion that he did, you realize that this is one guy that can turn around a game or put a team on his back, and he did that early on. But there were 60 minutes to play, and Dallas was going to bring it. I mean, there was no shortage of pushback, to quote our old pal Rick Bowness. But when it came down to it, Remis, and who had this? Stuart Skinner was better than Jake Ottinger in this series. And to be honest, as the series went on, I don't think it was close.
Yeah, Stuart Skinner, full credit to him. He thought he was done, thought he wasn't the guy. He had to take a seat in the last series and came back, and he was excellent. The shots on goal by period in this series, or in that last game, was incredible. 12-3 Dallas first period. 9-5 in the second period. And Edmonton just holding on for life in the third period, being outshot 13-2. And yeah, Stuart Skinner, might have been some bad goals he let in the series, but when it mattered, he shut the door. And he had, they had that great stretch where they had that huge winning streak in the middle of the season. And it was goaltending and defense as much as they have these elite offensive guys. And you saw that, and you saw the penalty kill was excellent. Killing 3 penalties yesterday, and that continued. And got to give a shout out to who it was Chris Knobloch, the head coach. Give a shout out to former Jets defenseman Mark Stewart for the great coaching that he did on the penalty kill. And so
no one mentions Mark Stewart at all. I mean, often we talk about Paul Coffey, who sort of came in mid-season. Stu was the one holdover from the Woodcroft era.
Yeah.
And this team just doesn't give up any goals when they're killing penalties. And I mean, listen, and that is massive for a number of reasons. First of all, Florida, and we're going to talk to Bill Lindsay about this later on, they are not going to want to be going to the box against this Edmonton power play. But, when that happens, there usually are chances and calls going both ways. Edmonton has such a massive advantage on special teams right now. Certainly the plan for Florida is to try and play as much of this series as they can at 5-on-5. The nature of the Panthers and the way they play sometimes, though, sometimes they're spending a little more time on the PK. And I would imagine the discipline for that team, not taking that extra shot, as that they are apt to do, has to be a priority for them, because the way the PK is working for Edmonton, no one's simply scoring on them. And you mentioned that power play. I mean, McDavid on his own can transform a power play. But when you've got 29 able to fire from literally any angle, I mean, it doesn't get much deadly than that. And you can survive average 5-on-5 play if you're dominating teams in special teams.
Yeah, the Edmonton Oilers, and first of all, here's the quote from Chris Knobloch, has Jason Greger putting it out there on Twitter. This is Oilers coach Chris Knobloch. I'm not taking any credit for this penalty kill. It is Mark Stewart's job, and he's done a fantastic job. The only thing I will take credit for is giving him that responsibility. I didn't know Mark at all, but I gave him that job, and I don't think we would be here if it wasn't for him. You look at all teams in the playoffs, the Oilers leading in penalty kill percentage, 93.9. However, look who's in second. Florida Panthers, 88.2. But the big differentiator for the Oilers is power play. They are leading the all teams in the playoffs, 37.3% power play. And Florida, a bit behind there, 23. I mean, very good power play, 23.3%. That's very good. But the Oilers are out of this world, and special teams is how they've, got their way here into the Stanley Cup Final. And, credit to their defense and goaltending as well for hanging on there in the final. I mean, it's going to be a nerve-wracking, on the edge of your seat, wave after wave. Dallas just coming into the zone.
It wasn't quite like the end of the Vancouver series where they called the timeout. And again, another brilliant play by Chris Knobloch, a moment of coaching over the course of these playoffs where he's really proven himself. But Vancouver, I don't think, had a shot in that final 3.5 minutes or so in Game 7 after they turned a 3-0 deficit into 3-2. So it's going to be it. Let's get to the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waiver and McGillivray. The poll is already up. And this is not who you do think is going to win. We'll get to the Coolbet Lines later on and let you know what the odds are for it. Florida is a slight favorite. But the question is, who do you want to win? Who are you pulling for in the Stanley Cup Final? Let us know. And if you're listening on the podcast, fire at us on X at Sports Talk WPG. I know there's been a big narrative, and there always seems to be, about a Canadian team winning the Stanley Cup. And to some people, that's important. And to others, the thought of a rival Canadian team winning makes them gag. Jake Bolin Moss came in with me on the Lock Shop and said to the Lock Shoppers, and of course the majority in Edmonton, because it's on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel, said, be honest with me, Oiler fans, how many of you would be pulling for the Leafs if you reverse the situation? If the Leafs were going to the Stanley Cup and the Oilers would out, how many of you would be going for the Leafs? And most of them admitted no way. It did give me an opportunity to say I'm really coming around to the Oilers, and the Jets will always have their 4-0 sweep of them in 2021 that no one remembers because there was no fans. But I have to admit, Reem, as a guy that, and maybe it's because I spend so much time talking with Nielsen and the guys, in Edmonton on the Lock Shop, We do see a lot of Edmonton, and we have throughout the playoffs. I don't hate them as much as I always did. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the brilliance of McDavid. There's some other guys on that team, like a Zach Hyman, that are pretty easy to root for. They've also got Kane and Corey Perry and some others that you might not be as fans of. But I definitely find myself warming up to the idea of Edmonton winning the Cup. But honestly, it has zero to do with any sense of patriotism.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I'm thinking like someone texted me, hey, are people going to tune in for this Cup? Florida, maybe not the national team like the Rangers are. I mean, we saw so many Rangers fans in Florida as well for those games. But I think in Canada, the ratings will be very high. But I think if you're a hockey fan, you want to see great players do great things. And Connor McDavid certainly doing that. I mean, he could quiet so many of the criticism about, he hasn't delivered a Stanley Cup. They have him, two great players, and then they can't get it done. But they've made conference finals before. They couldn't get over the hump, and credit to them for getting there. And I think the Connor McDavid factor brings the intrigue for me in this series I wanted to see. And, yeah, they have this elite power play that is so fun to watch how they handle the puck, snap it around, and score from these ridiculous angles like Leon Draisaitl does, and make incredible plays. I don't know if the Canada's team is your favorite narrative here heading in, but it certainly brings one. There's also Corey Perry. Did you know he's on his fourth Stanley Cup final with a fourth different team in the last 5 seasons? I wasn't sure if you heard that one, or the Jets. The number of Jets players, I think, intriguing. Like, can you imagine who do you want to see lift the cup, Huss? Paul Maurice or Evander Kane? One of them is going to be lifting the cup, and there's going to be a couple former Jets.
What about Stanny?
And I know we're going to have Bill Lindsay on. He's got some great insight onto what Stanny has brought him. I think we underestimated Stanny's contributions to the penalty kill last year here, because Florida's penalty kill, as I mentioned, has been also very good. And who's on there? Stanny.
Mainstay on that PK. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think he scored, 12 or 13 goals this year as well? Did. Listen, and he's a big guy. I mean, anyway, stick around for that. We'll talk more about Kevin Stenlund at the end of our conversation with Bill Lindsay. By the way, have to give a big happy birthday to the OG, caller number 1 himself, Gregory Liverpool, a mainstay of our Winnipeg sports scene, big Goldeye supporter, Jets and Moose. Also, Valor FC. I see Gregory waited out the rain delay. That's the sort of passion and commitment we need for all of our teams. Way to go, Greg. And he said, speaking of birthdays, like John Cena said, today is my time. So love the Cena reference as well, Greg. And I hope you have a very happy birthday. It does seem like this poll, I think a slight majority of people pulling for the Oilers. Where it's at 61-39 right now in favor of Edmonton. But I do see a lot of comments, and I feel this, like Alana Sutton. As a Jets fan of the 80s and 90s, I simply can't root for the Oilers. Chris Joyce, they get Gretzky, then McDavid falls into their lap, cannot pull for Edmonton. Roger Delorme, and I'm here for this. I have such PTSD over the Oilers in the 80s that I struggle going for the Oilers. Kevin Kowalik, the sweep means nothing to you. Well, why would you? If you're a Jets fan, it should. I mean, that was awesome. That was all we had for a long time. And frankly, if you think about the long sordid history of the Jets going up against Edmonton, I will always look back fondly on that sweep. And then I get pissed off about what happened in that damn Montreal series that the Jets should have absolutely won and made it on to the next round. Listen, there's guys on both teams that I'm sure most average fans can't stand, and there's guys on both teams that I'm sure people would like. I am also interested in where people are at on Paul Maurice here. I know there's a lot of people that have said just in conversations, you know what, I'd love to see Maurice get the cup. There are others that sort of think about what happened on his watch towards the end, and the way that he left and what that did to the Jets season, which was basically nuke it. that maybe don't have as fond memories of the way things ended and are pulling for Edmonton. But let us know in the chat thoughts on Maurice getting the cup. Where are you on all of that, Reem?
I think time heals wounds. I think it's really impressive what they've done here in Florida. I don't know anyone saw this coming when they hired Paul Maurice, and I think it got off to a really rocky start. But if you look at the NHL all-time coaching records, has Paul Maurice certainly up there. He's been around for a long time. We enjoyed all his press conferences, enjoyed what he brought to the Jets when he first came in. And you talked about this last week with Brandon, how there are similarities in the way that this year's Florida Panthers team played in the 2018 Jets. And Paul Maurice could have had me, they don't run into a hot goalie like Marc-Andre Fleury. Maybe the Jets do get to a cup final that season. I mean, really sad thing about how that ended for what was a great season. But, I think Paul Maurice, look, he's won 869 games, fourth all-time, games coached. He's second all-time. Would be a fitting thing to have a guy with those type of numbers who's been around for so long have his name on the Stanley Cup. I don't think it ended here great, but I think he brought a lot of good here to Winnipeg, to the organization, and he seems like a great person as well. So sure, I'm on team Paul Maurice for this one. I'll take it.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, listen, we're not going to relitigate that entire story, but Maurice did some amazing things here in Winnipeg. He came in here, he turned the Winnipeg Jets into a legitimate NHL team, brought a lot of legitimacy to the club that I think they really needed coming out of the first couple of years and the honeymoon, Claude Noel. And listen, he turned them into a team that, was absolutely right there competing for a Stanley Cup and a Stanley Cup contender. And we'll get into this in a minute with Bill Lindsay in the second hour of the program. But, he is a guy that gets his leaders and lets them kind of be the locker room and the culture. And like I don't think there was a lot of mistakes Paul Maurice made as far as, X's and O's. I mean, some people didn't like his, the players that he decided to play or the players that he liked and whatever. That will always happen. But just the fact they had to bring Rick Bowness in and redo the entire culture of the team that was developed on Maurice's watch, that's the one thing that I kind of think back that, the mistakes were made. Do I hold that against Paul? I mean, not really, I guess. More just the way that he left the team high and dry, the way that they left. But I'm looking here in chat, and Reg Dunlop, Nomo for Pomo. Waiter said, "Be careful what you wish for. Oilers fans will rub it in all year if they win." Well, that's not for sure. Patrolman Pete, Maurice did his best here. No hard feelings. Scott Westman, Pomo can win. Don't care. Stonewall Dave, I'm mostly over my Pomo distaste. And Brass Bonanza says, I want Pomo to win. Good person, good coach. He deserves it. And Delorme, I would love to see him win a cup. So give us your thoughts on that as well in the chat. We're going to talk a little more cup final, and then we get to week one of the CFL. Jeff Hamilton coming up in a few minutes. Looking forward to having Hammer on the program. But first up, we'll look ahead to the Cup final and look back at the conference finals, as well as everything else going around in the National Hockey League as we get into June and draft month, where we will be broadcasting for most of the week down in Vegas here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. But, I just want to thank our friends at Rolly's Transfer. Folks, if you have a move planned or know that it's going to be coming, use the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family owned and operated for 60 years, and that is Rolly's Transfer. Not just here in Winnipeg, but throughout southern Manitoba. Their logistics part of their business takes them everywhere, so they can provide you flexible routes, rates, timing, and the best rates, I should say, when it comes to moves in Winnipeg and in southern Manitoba. What you're going to want to do is go over to their newly launched website at rollys.com, ROLLYS.com. Click on that request a quote function at the top. Let them know what you're moving, where you're moving, when you want to do it. And the friendly folks at Rollies will turn it around quickly, get you a great quote, and get you set to be on the move with as little stress as possible. For your next move, use Manitoba's most trusted name in moving services for over 60 years, Rollies Transfer. Find out more and request your quote at rollies.com. I got to shout out our friends at Consolidated Supply. They are busy right now as we get into spring and summer. Of course, you know that they are the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, and golf carts, with other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. And now, in addition to their leading small engine parts and repair side of the business, they're also the distributor of Crest Power Tools, including that crazy RTK robot mower. Pop by and see them at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out more online at cte.ca. Hey, for all those golf carts and toys and whatnot, you're going to need batteries for them. And of course, Manitoba Battery is the spot, allowing you to shop local, guess the best prices in town, bar none, beating the pants off the big box stores, and saving you time as well, because Donnie and the gang will deliver those to you for free anywhere inside the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. Visit them for all your battery needs on Logan Avenue, the new location on the south side on Dover Court, and give them a call or check them out online at manitobabattery.com. And just before we bring in Dennis Bernstein, Thursday night, home opener for the Bombers. I'm sure many of you are already booking Friday off. It is going to be a party down at Princess Auto Stadium. And I imagine many of you will be hitting the Rum Hut, enjoying some Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And of course, those amazing CC and Gingers available in cans at the stadium as well. Canadian Club and Beam Suntory, the official spirits of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It's Bomber season. Cheers to another great one for the blue and gold. And grab one on Thursday night. And of course, at your next stop at the Manitoba Liquor Marts, check out the Canadian Club display and pick up Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. Speaking of favorites, we got one of our favorites joining us right now. None other than Dennis Bernstein of the Fourth Period. DB, what's going down in LA? How are you, my friend?
Figures I'm on after the booze promo. I'm doing great. I will be the one media member that's not going to complain about the travel for the Cup Final, because that's all I hear. Oh, the poor media. Like, who cares? Get on a plane. Let's go. Fall asleep.
Listen, you think anyone? It is quite funny actually hearing that. Although I saw something that the league might be chartering a plane for the media. Probably just the exclusive, the A-listers or something like that.
Well, maybe the internal media, maybe the guys and girls that write for NHL.com. I haven't gotten any notification.
Yeah.
All my flights are booked, I think, through Game 6, which I don't think anybody's looking forward to. I think the people that aren't grousing about the travel, Costa are probably looking for a sweep. Hopefully, only one trip to Edmonton, but we'll see what happens.
Hey, I don't know about that. I mean, tell you what, I'm just excited about this final. I mean, I think the Florida Panthers are clearly the best team in the East. Mm-hmm. And I certainly didn't always think that the Oilers were the best team in the West. But when you've got Connor McDavid doing Connor McDavid things, and all of a sudden Stuart Skinner winning a goaltending battle in a series, Oilers are pretty tough to beat. Not to mention special teams numbers that are frankly mind-blowing. What did you think of the conference finals, first off, and how Florida got there and how Edmonton got there?
Okay, so Florida was on script, right? You knew they were going to outchance the Rangers. You knew they would dominate puck possession. No surprise there. You knew it would come down to Bobrovsky and Shesterkin. And Shesterkin was amazing. Hustler, he really was, but he just wasn't good enough. And the one issue that the Rangers had is their big guys didn't show up in big spots. And when they failed in the playoffs with this group, you've heard that and seen it before. Panarin didn't score. Zibanejad wasn't effective. Kreider, after his hat trick, I don't think scored another goal. So it went right to script. You threw out the script with the West, Hustler. And look, I was 0 for 2. I had the Rangers in 7 and Dallas in 5, so I'm no expert right on this one. But I think that there was no script, because if you told me that Edmonton would kill a record number of consecutive power plays, I'd say you're crazy. And you're right about that. But Look, I love Dallas. I love their roster. Now, a couple of things. Joe Pavelski looked his age. He just really looked his age, and now there's talk about him hanging up the skates, not ever winning a Stanley Cup. And that second line of Duchesne and Marshman and Pavelski, that was the difference. They did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. And again, the one weak link besides the second line for Dallas, I said, look, it's Ottinger. And you can look at every game, and probably, except for the last game, because it was only 2-1, there was a bad goal in every game. Like the Broberg goal that made it, that was the insurance goal, never should have went in to make it 3-0. So it wasn't surprising that Dallas lost the way they lost. I think the most surprising thing is the way Edmonton played defense was reminiscent of when they won those 16 games in a row. Right? They were playing great defense. And look, they weren't playing great competition through that stretch, but you look at the scores, it was 3-2, 2-1. And the fact that, you're right, Skinner was better last night. It's 35-10. It was a record, Hustler. There's never been that shot discrepancy ever in a conference final deciding game. So was that the script Edmonton wanted to play? I don't think so, but Connor made an amazing play. Zach Hyman continues to produce, and they had enough saves to go on to a Cup final. Do I think they're the best team in the West? Now I do. I picked them in the first round against LA. I didn't pick them after that. But this is going to be a different team, because the one thing that Dallas didn't do that Florida will do, Hustler, is the physicality part. They're going to get banged on. You saw it in the Rangers series, and that's what and that was the difference for the Rangers between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Panthers. They're basically the same type of team. Like puck possession, you're going to get outchanced. But the physicality with Sam Bennett and Kachuk and their defense, it's going to be a little bit different. I expect a lot more hitting in this final series, because that's the way the Panthers win games.
Edmonton has mixed it up at times, and they tried to add guys. Harry on the periphery. Yeah. Evander Kane, for sure, will be a central figure, although Evander got hurt in last night's game. And, good thing for Edmonton. They've got another week to get ready for Saturday night when they drop the puck in game 1. Florida on their side of things, though, that is a nasty team that's consistently played right on, sometimes over the line. I would suggest that their discipline in the series will be one of the most important things, because, bottom line is, even if they get even up calls, the Oiler PK is working at such an elite rate right now. There's no guarantee you're going to make any of those. And on the other side, as good as their PK has been, the Oiler power play is just in another area code than most other teams in the NHL.
You're absolutely right about that. And the thing is, the Panthers like taking penalties. They have a propensity to do that. Now, they took less in the Rangers series, but if they're going to go in the box 5 times against the Oilers, they're not going to win games. It's as simple as that. They're going to have to walk the line, like you say, because you can't take that. You can't put that to chance. And not only that, I know that the Panthers were the better team against the Rangers and 1-6, but they were all 1-goal games. And if you're going to go into the box against Edmonton, you might be on the wrong end of the 1-goal games. I couldn't agree with you more, Hustler. That's going to be a key. How many times do they going to go into the box? They're comfortable doing that because they have great defense. Bobrovsky's been very, very solid. But this is a different animal you're dealing with respect to special teams. And that's the one advantage, I think, going into the series. You're going to say, okay, advantage Edmonton, special teams, advantage 5-on-5, Florida Panthers.
We've got Bill Lindsay coming up later on. I'm going to ask him this, but let me get your perspective on it. A very different year for Florida. They didn't just squeak into the playoffs. They didn't have to have a miraculous comeback from down 3-1 against the number 1 team and then sort of catch lightning in a bottle. They've been ready for this, knowing they were going to be a playoff team, resting some guys at the end. They seem a lot healthier, but they also have the experience of getting there and falling just short last year. How much better positioned is Florida to potentially win the Cup this year than they were 12 months ago in your mind, DB?
I think right now in the moment, they're significantly better than the team that went to the Cup final. You mentioned they're healthier. There's more experience. Who scored the clinching goal for them in the final game? Tarasenko, right? So they're, so that worked. And remember, they've got, who do they have on the bottom pair? Like, Kulikov and Avila, Ekman, Larson. That's a pretty darn good bottom pair. They're a better team. They were a better team coming in. And that team had a miracle run, but they had a miracle run. Here's the thing, Hustler. There was no miracle this year. Like beating Boston when you're down 3-1 and Marchand's coming in at the buzzer to finish the series. There were no miracles. This is not Cinderella. Like you saw this team coming, and you're right. You saw them coming in November, not in March, not when they got to the playoffs. This is a much better team. It's physical. They now understand it, and I agree with you. Losing last year in the Cup Final and being on the ice in Vegas, watching them raise the trophy, certainly gave them extra motivation. I don't think they need any extra motivation, to be honest with you. But I certainly think clearly, pound for pound, this is a better team that lost in 5 to the Vegas Golden Knights this time last year.
Yeah, and I mean, I be interesting to compare Edmonton and Vegas. Edmonton lost to Vegas the year before, so we knew that last year Vegas was in a better spot than they were. And again, much like Florida, you learn from falling short. It should make you better. But I mean, this to me is Connor McDavid. Like we were talking last round, when they made all those changes after Game 3, and I'm like, wow, it's pretty extreme. It seems sort of rattled, like that maybe they're rattled. But I kept coming back to this point. Do what you want with the fourth line. Change the sixth defenseman.
Sure.
The Edmonton Oilers are winning and losing based on their best players being their best, and McDavid certainly was. Draisaitl stepped it up. The big kicker was Stuart Skinner, though. I mean, we all thought that Jake Ottinger was a massive, massive upgrade over Skinner. And by the end of that series, Skinner was the better goaltender. But I do really think that we're looking right at 29 and particularly 97. And if he can be magic and put a few up every night and they can play the way they have through the rest of the lineup hanging in, they do have an opportunity to win this series, but it's going to be on the backs of their best guys.
And they did beat a team that has 4 lines and rolls 3 pairs.
Absolutely.
Beat them. They absolutely did it. They did it. And look, here's the thing. I agree with you with respect to, you got to give credit to Knoblauch. He had some changes. And, look, from 2-0 down Game 4, it was an entirely different team. Like whatever happened at that defining moment of this run, like that's one of the defining moments. They're down 2-1 in games. They're down 2-0 at home. The crowd's really quiet. And, well, they ain't quiet no more, Hustler. If anybody watched that game last night, you see how loud that crowd in Edmonton was. They were going nuts there last night. But it changed. They played defense. They get in lanes. They block shots. And it's more than a puncher's chance. I think this is a toss-up. I haven't really decided. I'm leaning towards the Panthers, but could Edmonton win? Absolutely, because if they get the best from their best, and not only that game that they won to make it 2-2, remember, who scored in that game? McLeod and Yermark. If they get any contributions from their bottom 6, like, they got a really good shot at winning this. Like, we're going to get from Connor Leon and Zach, right? Nugent-Hopkins has played well, and certainly Bouchard. But if they start getting goals from McLeod and the bottom 6, and if Fogle gets in, and they get contributions there, they're going to be very, very – look, they're going to be hard to beat anyway. Because Connor and Leon sniff it. They're like thoroughbreds. They're close to the finish line. They're coming down the home stretch. Now, they've never been here before, and it's different. But I think it's a little easier for them, to be honest with you, playing in Florida than imagine going to Madison Square Garden and playing games in Games 1 and Game 2. That really is overwhelming. Not disrespecting the Florida crowd. I was there last year, and they now have a legitimate fan base as opposed to 10 or 15 years ago. But I think playing in Florida might give them a little bit of a break if they stay out of the elbow room. That's the one thing. They can't make those nightly trips to the elbow room, Hustler, that famous bar in Fort Lauderdale. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting series.
The minute you mention the elbow room, I think of our old pal, Dennis Bayak. Yeah. And Bayak loved that bar, I think maybe more than any other stop in the entire National Hockey League. And we were lucky enough to be down there at the time on the road with the Jets. All right, boys, we'll see you at the elbow room. I hadn't been there before, and Dennis is there, shorts, the Bermuda shirt, just having the best time. And yes, you are right. I think it'll be all business for the Oilers. Now, the fans of the Oilers, that might be another story. Speaking of which, a certain famous fan from the watch party on Saturday night has probably been through my feed 200 to 300 times.
Too many times.
The next little while.
Right.
Just can't wait.
Unsung hero. That's the unsung hero for the Oilers.
If they win the cup, does she get a ring? I mean, that was the big question earlier today in the lock shop. But Dennis, listen, there's a lot of other things going on in the league right now. Yeah. You've got 30 teams that are planning for the draft, that are planning for free agency, that aren't fortunate enough to be competing for the most famous trophy in the sport. We've also got still a coaching vacancy. What did you make of that coaching carousel that finished up with Scott Arniel here in Winnipeg? But a handful of new coaches in and around, including Sheldon Keefe going from Toronto to Jersey, and Craig Berube ending up as the new guy on the Leafs bench.
I think the Berube hire was the worst kept secret in the league. People were saying that when he was on the TNT panel 2 months ago. He's a right fit. Now, Hustler, that's great, and I get it, accountability. But those players in the playoffs, you're gonna have to change the dynamic there. Like, it's not just about the coach; it's about the roster, and who knows how they're gonna do. Who knows what's gonna happen with Mitch Marner? I think my takeaway is, and again, retread. You talk about Lindy Ruff going back to Buffalo, Sheldon Keefe jumping on in New Jersey. I think you have to realize that not a lot of new coaches are getting shots here, right? Like, the only guy I would think of who was an outsider, who wasn't coached in this league before, would be David Carl. And for Denver University, really, really good young coach, will be in the NHL. But I think the realization with respect to front offices in the NHL, there's a finite number of men that can coach this league. Like, it's probably, if there's 32 teams, maybe 40. And that's why you see it, because you don't want to take the chance and roll the dice. And even a guy like David Quinn, who did coach in the league before, they went back to him with a team that was, look, they'll be better with Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith. But I think that's what you find. So I'm not surprised that everybody's now leaning towards, I got to have a guy who's has NHL experience, because I think there's too much risk involved in an unproven coach at this point in time. I'm not saying that David Carl couldn't succeed somewhere else, but that's what you're seeing. And with respect to people saying, we need new blood, I don't know. Pete DeBoer's 8-0 in playoff in Game 7s. Laviolette did a great job taking over from Gallant. Paul Maurice is a retread if you want to really technically talk about it. The only guy that hasn't been a retread is Knoblauch. Right? But I think that's what you see. So I think that GMs are leaning more towards going towards Laviolette type or DeBoer type, as opposed to rolling the dice. And it was a dice roll with Knoblauch, although the people in Edmonton told me that Jeff Jackson had targeted this guy for years, and then when he finally took control over in Edmonton, he was the guy that when they were failing on the Jay Woodcroft, he took control.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Knoblauch story, I kind of thought that, going into the Final Four, that was a real sort of Achilles heel for the Oilers, that, the lack of experience compared to the other coaches that were remaining, Peter DeBoer, Paul Maurice, Peter Laviolette. Like, I mean, there was really three guys that were in one situation and one that was in another. But credit where credit is due. I mean, he's pressed the right buttons and he's trusted his team, and they've made him look good. And now they're in the final. What's taken so long in San Jose? Fill us in on this situation. Like, they got Macklin Celebrini, they won the draft lottery, huge for getting back to being respectable in the National Hockey League. But of all of the coaching searches, Seattle was a little quiet, but San Jose, they certainly are taking their time with a lot of work to be done as we get closer to Vegas in a few weeks.
I just think Mike Greer is more patient than the average GM, and he's probably got a longer leash from the owner, and so that's why he's taking his time. Now, you look at their assistant coaches, Borofsky, down here in Los Angeles, Marco Sturm, who's a legendary Shark, who was the head coach for the Ontario Reign, is a big candidate as well. I think what you would want to have happen, Hustler, is have a coach in place by the draft. And since we're still basically 3 weeks away from the draft, or 3 weeks plus, I think you'll see some traction here in January and June, because you want to know the coach, you want to know the style of play that he's going to adapt when you go into free agency, trades, and the draft. So I would think in the next couple of weeks. But is there a leading contender? I don't think so, because you have the options of going internally or bringing back a guy who is a legend, who's a well-known name in San Jose, in Marco Sturm, and he wants to be a head coach as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's still a very long climb. Even with Celebrini and Will Smith, this team is far, far away. So you might have a situation, Hustler, where the next coach might be a builder, may not necessarily be the guy that wins them a championship ultimately in San Jose, but it might be a situation like you saw with Todd McClellan in LA. They bottomed out. He came in, he established structure and system, couldn't get him over. So the next coach, or if it's Jim Hiller or whoever comes after Hiller, might win a championship. I think you might see the same thing. So you might want a guy who wants no structure, wants to build. There's even some rumors about Todd going back there. This team needs a lot of structure, so I think you'll need to see a building type of coach as opposed to a quote unquote championship coach.
Is Mike Grier going to be the guy that is entrusted with the full rebuild? I mean, to be honest, there were some times over the last couple of years where, certainly with big significant moves, you were wondering, are they sort of being picked at right now? Getting Celebrini and winning the draft lottery, I think, helps his cause in a big, big way. But how much pressure is there on Grier to be respectable? They at times last year didn't even look like a National Hockey League team, and it was ugly.
Well, they had to clear the decks, and they did get that albatross of a contract from Carlson off their necks, right? So I think that's one thing. So I think he has some room here to run. I think he's got to get at least another 2-3 seasons, right? You got to figure. I don't know how much Celebrini and Smith are going to play next season. So you give them another throwaway season. The following season, the 25-26 season, would be ultimately, I think, the proving ground for Mike Grier. So I think he has some time here because you're right. It's so bereft of talent, that roster. When you look at it, it's not, with a couple of exceptions. And Logan Couture was hurt all season. A Mario Ferraro is solid. But, they did offload. And, it took a while. It took a while to convince. I think what happened here, like the owner had Platner, like he's the one that signed the deal for Hurdle. When they got that extension, my understanding is the hockey ops people said, don't do it. It's not a good move. He loved the player, brought him in. So now he's offload Carlson, he's offload Hurdle. Now he's got to let the hockey ops people take control, run the team for a couple of seasons, see what happens. So I don't think it's a make or break season for Mike Grier this season or even next season. I think you're looking at probably 2 seasons to see progression from this team because, again, you're going to have a coach in here for 1 year. It's going to establish structure, hopefully new systems. You're going to have to give this GM another couple of seasons to see if the work that he does manifests itself into a championship team or a contending team.
DB, one of the more interesting pending UFA situations around the league is in Vegas with Jonathan Marchessault.
Yeah.
So he has been a knight ever since the Misfits and the birth of this team. I believe he led them in scoring last year. Has done so many things for that club. Still does not have a contract. What are you hearing, and how do you see this playing out?
Okay, so a lot of guys come to Vegas and get rewarded, like Stone did, and Hurdle did, and Hannafin did, and the guys who have been there forever really don't get rewarded as much. So that's the concern. But I will tell you this: nobody should be concerned in Vegas because you look at all the unrestricted free agents. Mantha's good. They're not signing Mantha. Like he was an underperformer, underachiever in the playoffs. They're not going. Chandler Stevenson maybe. Right, all their Michael Amadio gone, William Carrier gone, Alec Martinez gone. The priority for the organization is to sign Jonathan Marchessault. So I would be stunned if he's not a member of the team after, let's say, I don't know when let's say July 1 or whenever the extension kicks in. That's their first priority, Hustler. They're letting all these other guys walk. So I would not be concerned. I'm a Vegas Golden Knight fan. He deserves the money. He was a Conn Smythe winner. They will take care of him. That's priority one. So that's why you see these other 4 or 5 unrestricted guys. They're not going to be part of the team next season.
If you had to bet, is Mitch Marner a Maple Leaf for game number 1 of the regular season? And if he's not, what's the most likely destination?
You're going to laugh. There's the narrative now is like, okay, one more ride. This is it. Prove yourself in the playoffs, whatever. I don't know. Why not Vegas? Why not? I'll even give you the trade. Okay. Look at the cap numbers. Theodore and William Karlsson. That's about $10 million. They could pull it off. And that would work. And if you had Theodore and Karlsson on the lease, I'm telling you, they're a better team. So that's it. Now, look, Nashville's a possibility as well. Hustler, I don't see like the value in having 4 $10 million players on the team. I don't. I don't see it. It doesn't work. It's too top heavy. Now, you could argue that a top heavy team in Edmonton may win the cup. So that's one argument there. I just don't. I think there's too many other holes on this team to have the luxury of 4 $10 million players next season. So I would look to move him. Now he's got a no movement clause, so it doesn't mean he's going to leave. So you're not going to be able to trade him Columbus for 5 first round picks. But I think for the better of the team, because you can't move. I don't think you can move the Tavares contract. That would be the guy to move at this point in time. And you can make the logic, hey, we're changing things. We changed the coach, and this group can't have a deep run. They could do one more deep run. They could try it one more time. But I would think they're better served to shore up other parts of the team by trading Mitchell Marner.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and this is the one reason, that's an interesting proposal from Vegas. I just don't know whether they would prefer to have a player like Marner, never mind Carlson, than Theodore. I mean, the blue line has been such a focus of theirs to build it up and to make it elite, and we know how important those are. And then, of course, there's the not-so-dirty little secret that Mitch Marner hasn't really shown up in the playoffs. And these are teams that are trying to build themselves for the playoffs, and I do wonder what that does to his. Well, what do you think Utah is going to do? As Utah is fascinating. They have so much draft capital built up. They're in a new market. I think they're going to want to be competitive, make a bit of a splash, maybe add some star power. We've been talking about the potential of Nikolai Ehlers being on the move if there's no extension. I think that sort of a situation for a guy like Ehlers might be, very attractive to the Utah team. Do you think that they'll be aggressive, and how different will that team look once we get to next year after, what happens over the course of the next month and a bit?
Also, don't they have to be, aggressive now? The excuse of being at the Mullet Arena is over, right? In the market with all the distractions, there's no. You have a great owner. They're going to renovate the building. The team's welcome there. They have 22,000 deposits for season tickets. They were welcome to a massive crowd at the arena when they changed from Arizona to Utah. And I also think there'll be a player in free agency. I think that's a team that would go after a guy like Jake Gensel. Like, that would be a nice fit for them. And scoring forward, I think Seattle would be in the mix for that guy as well. I think they need to be aggressive at this point in time because Bill Armstrong really has had a couple of mulligans. He's been out for another. Wasn't a great owner, and I'm being kind when I say wasn't a great owner. The market, it's a great market, but you can't play in the building. It's a minor league building. The guys getting trained, the visiting teams getting changed behind curtains and stuff instead of a legit locker room. I mean, come on. So, but I think they would be very aggressive. They have to make moves here because they don't have a core hustler that's going to win them 50, 52 games. But they have some really good players on that team. But ton of draft capital, tons of cap space. They need to be aggressive at this point in time. I think Jake Gensel. Look, if Stamkos at free agent, he's going to go play in Utah. Of course not. Now, I'll tell you one thing now. Stamkos, I'll give you two places for Stamkos if for some reason they're not smart enough to re-sign him in Tampa. Like when you look at the guys who are free agents in Dallas, and you look at what Joe Pavelski did when he left San Jose, he was a lifetime San Jose Shark and went there. I think he would be a great fit in Dallas. The one for the drama of it, Hustler, for the drama of it. Imagine if Steven Stamkos goes to July 1 and the Florida Panthers call him up.
I knew you were going to go there.
I'm just for the drama of him, just to have the conversation, just to have the chatter about that. So, but again, back to Utah, I think they'll be a very aggressive team. They have some pieces, but they're still pretty far away, right? And, Tony's a solid coach, but I think that's a team that could certainly add parts offensively. Nick Ehlers would actually be a nice addition as well. But I think they'd go after one of the big fish in free agency, and one of them would be Jake Gensel.
I'm just looking at Arizona right now. Their first-round pick, 3 second-rounders, 3 third-rounders, 4 second-rounders the year after, and 3 the year after that. They've got 10 second-round picks in the next 3 drafts, Dennis.
And that's how you acquire established talent. Like here in LA when they went and get Victor Robertson, I think it was a second and a third, right? Those seconds and thirds have values for players who, maybe not in the prime, but, are still productive players. That's how you wield the draft capital, by using those. It's always people, first round pick. Yeah, okay, maybe not first round pick, but the second and third round picks, that's legit currency to get players who are maybe 20, 25 goal scorers that could add to the mix in Utah and make their embedded team. So when you bring that up, that's what I look at as well, saying, okay, first of all, you're not going to draft all those players, right? And even if you did, most of them aren't going to make it. So again, I think that's what Bill Armstrong has to do here. Use his draft capital, and it takes multiple picks to get a player like Ehlers, then you make the move. As long as it's not your first rounder, I think he can get that done. So I think that would be an improved team in Utah coming in. And I think just from the emotional standpoint of not having all that chatter about the arena and the market and the nonsense there, I think things will be calmed down so that the team can focus. Because you can't tell me, Hustler, that guys like Clayton Keller some nights really couldn't focus. When you walk into a 5,000-seat arena and they're playing Edmonton and 4,000 of the fans are rooting for Edmonton, that can't be good for the team emotionally. So I think they'll be just in a lot better space from an emotional standpoint and a mental standpoint in Utah as whatever they're going to be called next season, just the Utah Hockey Club, I guess.
The funny thing is, talking about, Utah as a potential ending up spot for Nikolai Ehlers if he's traded, is, many people think that, if the Jets do make that move, they're going to be looking to shore up their blue line and add someone in. And I'm pulling up, they don't have a single defenseman signed for next season
I
yet.
know. It's nuts. It's crazy.
They got 2 UFAs and they've got 3 RFAs, all with arbitration, and that's it. So Bill Armstrong's got a lot of work to do, and I have a feeling some of those picks are going to be on the move. DB, have a great time at the Cup Final. We'll hopefully can catch up with you at some point during it, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person in a few weeks down in Vegas before the picks are made at the Sphere.
Always a pleasure being on Winnipeg Sports Talk, Hustler. I'll see you in Vegas, and we'll enjoy the Cup Final, even with all the extensive travel that everybody talks about.
Take it easy, pal. Thanks so much for doing this. There is Dennis Bernstein of the fourth period. Bomber practice has gone a little late, so we're going to go down to South Florida first and check in with Bill Lindsay on the Panthers win, and then we'll get to the Bombers once everything wraps up down at Princess Auto Stadium. And Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press joins us. Speaking of Princess Auto Stadium, Thursday night, it is on. The stadium will be full. Don't forget about the Princess Auto tailgate zone before each and every Blue Bomber game, opening up at 5:30, $5 beers, $3.50 hot dogs. It is the place to get together with other Bomber fans before you go in and get ready to get loud, cheering on the blue and gold in that Grey Cup rematch. And don't forget, Monday, July 1st, Canada Day, Princess Auto and the Bombers present a massive celebration of our country, free to all Winnipeggers and Manitobans. The event's going to get going at noon with stuff for the entire family, games, inflatables, food trucks, and more. Main stage begins at 3 p.m., headlined later on at night by the Sam Roberts Band and Doc Walker. Fireworks at dusk, all completely free. Make a point to join your, thousands of your best friends here in Winnipeg and Manitoba down at the free Canada Day celebration at Princess Auto Stadium. Got to shout out our friends at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists in town. Listen, they've been doing this since 1946. That's why we've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. And they've got you covered. Listen, if you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter banged up your old one, they got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you do need a garage door, they've got the largest selection of overhead garage doors in the city. Give Wallace & Wallace a call at 452-2700. They'll arrange a time to come and give you a free estimate. You can also get more information and find out more at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. Guys, if you need to up your menswear game heading into spring and summer, get on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. Having a wedding this summer or in a wedding party, talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount when the wedding party gets their suits at F Apparel, and still time to talk to them about that great promo for 2024 high school grads needing a suit for their big day that they can wear into the next stage of their life. F Apparel is at 190 Smith Street. Find out more online or make an appointment to come in for a fitting at F. That's EPHapparel.com. And a shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. The season is underway. I saw an absolutely massive trophy pike come out of the water on the weekend on one of the social channels, and about a 29-inch walleye on some guy's first cast of the day. The fish are big, the good times are plenty, and the hospitality is incredible. If you're thinking about a fly-in fishing opportunity here in Manitoba where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens is the spot. Find out more on 2024 availability today at aikenslake.com, and check out everything they've got going on all their socials at Aikens Lake. All right. Jeff Hamilton still to come as we wait for Bomber practice to wrap up. We'll have the Hammer join us in a few minutes. Right now, though, well, let's talk Florida Panthers, who were bound for the Cup Final for the second year in a row, and welcome in former Panther and Panther broadcaster Bill Lindsay on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Bill, it's great to talk to you again. Exciting times down in South Florida again.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. It's good to be on. It's very exciting down in South Florida. Had that big run last year. The buzz was around, and could they back it up? It was a mission statement right from training camp from Paul Maurice, the whole team, Matthew Tkachuk, Barkov. They were not happy with the way last year ended, and they said it was all about redemption this year, and they were able to get back to the second. We went all those years with all that futility. Now we get back-to-back chances at the Stanley Cup.
Well, last year was such a wild run. I mean, I still remember Brad Marchand with 5-6 seconds left in Game 5 of the Boston series with a breakaway where he scores. It's curtains, and the Panthers are out in 5, and yet they come back in that series. They make it all the way to the finals. I imagine this does feel different though this year, considering what the team had done in the past and the expectations that they had earned with their play in the playoffs last year, but also a very, very solid regular season.
Yeah, it's hugely different. Biggest difference from last year was Paul Maurice comes in, wants to change the identity of the team and the structure. And it took about to Christmas, the New Year, and then especially after the All-Star break for the team to grasp onto everything, where they got dialed in. And then it became a chase. They were playing playoff hockey after the All-Star break all the way to game number 81, 82 to just scrape their way into the playoffs, and they were able to get there, but there was a heavy workload at Tax. That Boston series, the 7 games, wildly entertaining, but it took a huge toll on the Panthers. They continued with the Leafs, Carolina. Once they got to Vegas and got to the Stanley Cup Championship, they were over the moon, but they were put together with duct tape. You had Ekblad with the ankle, Montour with the shoulder, Tkachuk the sternum. So coming in training camp this year, they knew who they were. The DNA was there. Paul Maurice ran them hard. They get Mikkola, they get Oliver Ekman-Larsson, they get Kulikov because of the injuries at the start of the year. They get off to a good start. They're rolling right around Thanksgiving. Looks like they're going to be on the trajectory to get in the playoffs. And towards the end of the year, they knew they were going to be there. So all of a sudden, everything became about the playoffs this year and the focus and the mindset. And if you had a hangnail in game number 75 this year, you weren't playing. It was simple as that. Ekblad rested down the stretch. Verhaeghe, healthy. Let's go. And on the big Jumbotron at the start of the playoffs, it said redemption. And I was like, whoa, that's a pretty bold statement to have up there. But that's this team. Once it got there, it's more serious than last year. It's business-like its approach. They're happy to get back to the Stanley Cup, but this team wants the Cup. Last year there was more of a euphoria around winning the Eastern Conference. More, it's like, okay, we did it. Now it's time to get on to the real business.
Bill, obviously, we know Paul very well here in Winnipeg from his time with the Winnipeg Jets, and he still has lots of fans here. How much of Paul Maurice is the identity of the Panthers? I mean, how big a part of shaping the Panthers has been on the head coach?
A lot. The last year, I talked about those systems. It was run and gun when we won the President's Trophy, lost in the second round to Tampa Bay. He comes in and he runs a left wing lock, or a lock, just a lock on the one side with the winger through the neutral zone. He wanted to get to defensive structure. We dump it in more than any other team in the NHL. We throw it in. We get heavy on the forecheck, back to the points. We're the best screen team in the NHL. It's rebounds. And he thought that was going to be the key to how this team was going to have to play, not only in the regular season, but to have playoff success. And it translated. Now that was in place, everything was all systems go this year. So that he was able to just mold and craft that. And what's happened this year, I'm talking to Paul with everything that's gone done is that the team is self-sustaining, especially at this point of the year because of the leadership. Barkov, Tkachuk, everyone works so hard that it just filters down through the lineup. If you don't play and you don't go 100 miles an hour and buy into these systems, you're not in the lineup. So Paul Maurice has actually said, coming into this postseason, my coaching was done, and I knew I had a dressing room that can take care of itself. I can push buttons and tweak things here and there, but he put it and he established exactly who the Panthers are. Forecheck heavy, strong defense, and they just don't change. If you don't play that way, you're not in. So a lot of what Paul Maurice has done is the identity of this team. And it goes to the players. It's like a pack of wolves now. It's one for all and all for one.
He also absolutely loves the edge that this team plays with. I can remember him coming into Winnipeg and kind of, remaking this team, in his own vision. And part of that was being one of the most heavily penalized teams in the league. I mean, they played on the edge and often over it. It seems like the Panthers have established that they can mix it up with pretty much anyone. And right now in the playoffs, I mean, as much as they've been physical, it's not like they've had to rely consistently on their penalty kill to survive games, because it just seems like they're better at it. They know who they are, and they're able to play at that level and not do anything stupid that can cost you.
Yeah, Paul Maurice said last year that team needed that over the edge, kind of the scrums after the whistles. That kind of really got the fire underneath them. This year, with what happened, he said coming into the playoffs, guys, if we get into scrums with what everyone knows about us, if we throw the extra punch, we're getting penalized. The referees are aware of how we play, and the stuff it has to be between the whistles. The scrums, make sure you don't throw the extra punch. You can still get in there. You can yap. You can chirp. But it's go, and it's physical. Bennett, he's going to try and he train wrecks someone every game. If you're going to beat the Panthers the way they play, they're going to take a pound of flesh off you, and you're going to have to find a way through it. There's no way around it. There's no sugarcoating it. It's a hard physical brand that the Panthers play. It's grind, it's go. And in these playoffs, a lot of it has been done between the whistles, but it's mean, it's nasty, and it's hard to play that way. That's why the buy-in from everyone has to be complete to do that. But to your point, a lot of it this year, it's a more business-like approach between the whistles. Let's go, stay out of the scrums, and they have been able to stay out of the penalty box up to this point, which is going to be critical into this next series. We know about that Edmonton power play.
Well, there's no doubt about that. Listen, before we get to the final, I do want to ask, listen, we know about Barkov, who I would imagine is probably the favorite for the Conn Smythe right now if the Panthers win. Reinhart and Tkachuk and Bennett. Carter Verhaeghe is a player that took a very different path to being an impact first-line player on a cup challenging team. And he seems like the most clutch guy. I know that's sort of cliche, but every time this team needs a big goal, he seems to be in and around the net and getting it done. What have you seen from him since he arrived in Florida to turn into the impact player that he is right now for the Panthers?
So he's a big junior scorer, then had that big year in the American Hockey League, gets a chance in Tampa Bay, wins the Stanley Cup as a fourth liner in Tampa Bay. And that's where part of the analytics dove in. They found out when they looked at him, he wins every puck battle, every race. He creates a lot of scoring chances in limited minutes. Let's bring him to our team. Let's give him a top six role and see if he can produce it at a top six role. So he gets here his first year. He puts up 20-plus goals, all at even strength. He's not getting power play time, but he drives offense. He's got a motor that just never quits. Fast skater, quick release. Builds on that. Second, third, he starts to get some second power play duty and still contributes. And then last year, he gets the 40 goals. and he's on the second power play unit. And he continued all his line mates, whether he plays with different combinations, but he's the force. He just doesn't lose puck battles. And when it gets critical at times, he wants the puck on his stick. And come into this year, he finally made it to the first power play.
Got to score 40 first before you get that shot.
Yeah, so he's worked so darn hard at everything. Nothing was given to him, but they looked at the type of player that he was. And the playoffs last year were stellar. The same thing this year. He's a player that is internally motivated, and the Panthers have a lot. They have a lot of internal drive in themselves to be great. And Carter Verhaeghe fits that bill just kind of because of the trajectory of how he had to get from where he was to where he is now.
Bill, the other guy that I mean, listen, if you weren't familiar with Gustav Forsling before the playoffs, and you've been watching the Panthers, you certainly are now. We were going through his numbers last week on the program because it was brought up that he was on waivers, and we kind of went through his path, and he was picked by Vancouver, and he was Chicago, and now he's playing number one minutes against the top matchups, scoring, and the plus 56 plus minus, I know we don't spend a lot of time talking about it, but I mean, that is just an absolutely obscene number. And he seems to stand out each and every night, not only defensively, but doing things offensively.
He's plus 12 in the playoffs to go with that plus 56 going against Kucherov and Point in the first round, Pasternak and Marchand in the second round, had to go against Panarin, Zibanejad, all those guys in the third round, and continues to put up points. So Gustav Forsling, Paul Maurice had an interesting comment when we picked him up on waivers, and when he was in Winnipeg, he said, I'm not sure. He's so slight. I'm not sure what the Panthers are quite doing there. Slight of build, doesn't seem to have the physical presence. He's a good skater. But then once he got here to Florida and witnessed Gustav Forsling, and Gustav Forsling got bigger and he got stronger as a person, as an athlete, and he was able to show off his skating ability, his pivoting, his gap control. And Paul said it's almost comical in practice when players go on 3-on-2s and 2-on-1s, the way that he breaks up plays just with his stick and goes. So Gustav Forsling, I've been able to watch it, but he has such dynamic skating ability, and he led the team in everything through the charts with all the off-ice conditioning at training camp.
Maurice will love that.
Yes, yeah. So there's some comparisons to a poor man Scott Niedermayer, the way that he plays. It looks effortless at times, and he jumps up in the play, but he has gap control to study and with his stick work, and then the ability now with the more confidence to get up into the rush and join the play. If it's a 2-on-2, make it a 3-on-2, 4-on-3, get shots through from the point. He is and he's tough. There's not the fighting toughness or the body checking, but I've seen Gustav Forsling take pucks in the face off the shin pads, go into the dressing room, and I'm like, oh gosh, we don't have Forsling anymore. 2 minutes later, he's on the ice. So it's a battle, a warrior mentality, and it's the same thing as Carter Verhaeghe. He's had to earn every inch of it, and it's become special to just watch his trajectory and get him on this big stage for everyone to see. We've seen it internally with the Panthers up close and personal, but now that the focus is there, you can see how marvelous of a player Gustav Forsling is.
Just before I ask you about the Oilers, from your perspective, how much more prepared are the Panthers to win the final series this year than maybe they were last year in that first trip to the final as a group?
Light years ahead. This team, with what they've been through and the confidence, and there's pressure, but there's a lot of talk of joy at this time of year. So to get last year was a big learning curve. It helped, and now they're prepared. They know what to expect, and they know how to attack and what they want to be. So that's going to play a huge part of what they have going forward into this Stanley Cup Final, their mindset, it's all about. So last year against Vegas, it was, it's happy. Everything happens kind of quick. Just everything that they've gone through has prepared them more. So I think this situation is just so much different. Than last year's, just with the way the team is built and what the focus is and the health. We're healthy, like across the board. And you get the day's rest now. You're going to hit the ground running almost as fresh as you've ever been throughout not even the regular season, but playoffs. This team's going to be clicking on all cylinders once they drop that puck.
Bill, before we go, I've got to ask you about this matchup, and it's a very different one than last season. I mean, last year you had sort of the two deepest, snarliest teams that played a pretty similar style of hockey. This year it's the Panthers going up against the Edmonton Oilers, who are a very different team than Florida. What do you make of Edmonton and what you've seen so far from them through the playoffs and the challenge that they will pose the Eastern Conference champs?
Well, beyond Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, we know what they bring to the table. You're going to have to, you can't stop them, but you got to have to be able to contain them. But the thing that's really impressive there with Chris Knobloch and Paul Coffey and the whole coaching crew is that they have been able to really work into their depth forwards. Their second, third, and fourth lines have played more of a role. There's more of a balance to the Oilers. Bouchard, the defenseman, they commit more to defensively. The question mark is this Panther team, they're going to get 30, 35 shots a night. There's no way around it. So does Stuart Skinner hold up? And if the Panthers, this is the one series you have to stay out of the penalty box. That power play is just too lethal. And whatever you do, they're gonna come after you. So that power play can be dangerous. Can you be physical against them? Can you shut them down and just moderate their scoring and make it look like you did against a lot of the other teams? If that happens, then this Panther team, you saw the third period against what Dallas did to Edmonton in the second and late in the second and third periods in last night's game. The Panthers have the ability to get to that kind of level and do that kind of stuff consistently. If that happens, then the Panthers are on their game and they're going to give Edmonton a real handful. The other way, the quick strike ability can happen. It's just keeping up with this. To me, the question is, can the Oilers stay with the Panthers for 60 minutes? Is their best equal to the Panthers' best?
Hey, before we go, what's the buzz like around South Florida right now? I mean, I think the Panthers sort of surprised everyone this year. They made a lot of new fans. I imagine it's going to be a madhouse come Saturday, but are you feeling it around the community right now with people really excited to see whether this team can bring a championship to South Florida?
It's huge. It's massive. We have great crowds all season long. We had between 17 and 19,000 every night. Even when a team, Winnipeg, it didn't matter, Ottawa, came in, we had the building, and it's been jam full. And the difference this year is the Miami Heat made the NBA Finals last year, and so we had a little cross with the Heat, but it's all Panthers this year. The Heat are eliminated. We got all CBS, ABC, NBC. All of them are down covering half-hour pregame shows. So everything is late, just all about the Panthers. You go everywhere. There's on talk radio. This is back to when we had a booming in the early 90s. They've got it back, and you win down there. There's an electricity. I know that Edmonton and all across Canada has exploded with the Oilers being in the Cup, and that's fun. And I'm glad to see a Canadian team, and I love Edmonton. But for us down in South Florida, we've been able to build the trust of the fan base back, and it's come back in a huge way.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people pulling for the Oilers across the country. I'll tell you, there's a lot of people around here pulling for Paul Maurice and our old buddy Kevin Stenlund as well. What a season Stenny had. He sort of came. Was he a surprise to you guys?
So thank goodness for him on the penalty kill. Big, strong. He led that fourth line. He gets rotating wingers around him, but he's been the consistent. And when Bennett was out, we had to use him on the third line in the Boston series for a few games. I love the way they play. It's consistent. Yeah, you know exactly what you're getting from that big guy. And they needed to improve the penalty kill. And the two players, Mikkola and Stenlund, have been the two driving factors on the Panthers penalty kill.
Yeah, well, he was missed on the Jets penalty kill this year. Let's just say that. Bill, thanks so much. Grab an extra buck for that long flight going to Edmonton for games 3 and 4. But enjoy the finals, and thank you so much for the time. Cannot wait for things to get going when they drop the puck Saturday.
All right, Andrew, I appreciate it very much, and all the best, and we'll look forward to it.
Cheers.
Day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Yeah, it might be time for a couple Little Brown Jugs tonight at the ballpark with the Gold Eyes beginning another series downtown at 6:30 tonight. Of course, we are looking forward to hosting all of you that have already got tickets, and those of you that haven't, don't wait. June 18th is our Gold Eyes patio party at Blue Cross Field. If you've been to the stadium this season already, you've seen the new patios right by Craft Beer Corner on the first base line. We're taking one over for the WST crew, and I think we've only got 13 tickets left. So if you have been humming and hawing or making sure you're available, don't wait any longer. Get to winnipegsportstalk.com, click on the link for the Gold Eyes, get your tickets, or you can click on the link right here in this description. And as I said, the Fish are back Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week before hitting the road again. The weather does not look that nice tomorrow or Wednesday, so I think tonight's the night to get down to the ballpark and see the Gold Eyes. Go to goldeyes.com for more information on groups, individual tickets, and everything going on at the ballpark, as well as their promo schedule this year. Hey, it is Monday, a great day to get on down and get a great meal to start off your week. And might I suggest a massive hoagie from Hoagie Boys on South Osborne Street. Get on down and slam a hoagie to the dome. Famously open 7 days a week now from 11:30 to 7. Some of the best sandwiches you'll see, all made fresh in-house with the hits like the Italian Standard, Adam Sanduzzi, Dr. Pepperoni, Evil Morty, and the Bingo Bronson. Also might be a great thought to get a few of these for tailgating before the Bomber game coming up on Friday. They can cater any occasion for game day, as well as corporate lunches, weddings, you name it. You got some people together that want a kick-ass sandwich, Hoagie Boys has you covered. Get on down there. Tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you down on South Osborne as well. We will get to a breezy golf report after we talk to Jeff Hamilton, but don't forget, gang, listen, maybe you bandwagon Oilers fans or Panthers fans want something to wear for the next couple of weeks. Well, you can always find it down at Royal Sports, the best selection of Winnipeg Jets, but also the rest of the NHL, all the merchandise there for you. All your favorite teams from the Big Four, as well as international soccer as well. We'll see. Shout out to Real Madrid for winning the Champions League. Sounds like Alphonso Davies might end up in Real Madrid. They signed Mbappe today. They've got great soccer jerseys from around the world. And, of course, with the weather getting nice, soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, running, and a huge selection of bikes. It's all waiting for you down at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And, hey, speaking of the playoffs, no game until Saturday. But we got Blue Jays tonight opening a big series against the Baltimore Orioles. And your friends at Boston Pizza are always waiting for you. And that playoff menu is available on baseball nights as well. Wing flights, the Sicilian square footer pizza, jalapeno popper dip, and more. And don't forget those ice cold schooners. Boston Pizza, make it your spot tonight. And hey, if you are staying at home, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. We will get to our track picks a little later on, as well as a little golf. But better late than never. Let's get hammered. Working a little OT today because Bomber practice went long. But hey, busy week for the Bombers and a lot of work to do to get ready for Thursday night and the Montreal Alouettes. Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press joins us now. Hammer, what's going on? Thanks for doing this.
It's going well. As you mentioned, Bombers went a little bit later than expected. And so here we are adjusting on the fly and doing our first car cast of the season. So yeah, it's super strong start to the week for both you and I, as you can see, and great weekend as always, and looking forward to Thursday and the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, listen, there was a lot going on. I mean, the weather sucked. We had delays for the football game, a delay in the baseball, delay for the Valor game yesterday. Nice win for the Sea Bears. But, I mean, listen, I don't know how much we really want to talk about Friday night because so many of the guys that we saw is already gone. And I felt sorry for you. You do the big story about Chris Smith. Maybe we found our returner, 109-yard return, gets hurt and then gets cut.
Don't sometimes things aren't exactly the way they seem. And in this case, you're right. I did right. My lead was, they may just have found their guy or whatever. But so I did leave that caveat open because, anything can happen. But I don't think we've seen the last of Chris Smith. He got injured in that game and not sure exactly when. From what I understand, it wasn't on the play, but it was in the first half. And the 109-yard touchdown that you were alluding to happened with 2:40 left in the second quarter. So I'm not sure what would have happened in that other bit of time, but he was not available for the second half. And as you saw in the Sunday morning, he was on the list of cuts. Now, what happens if you get injured in camp, the team's ultimately responsible for your rehab. So Chris Smith is still here, still working with the team, I believe, or training staff at least. And I think he'll get the chance once he's healthy to compete. How long that will be, I don't think it's a super long injury. Certainly not weeks and weeks. Otherwise, I don't think that my report would be as positive as his return. But certainly it feels like a numbers situation at this point. I mean, that being said, Mike O'Shea wasn't necessarily, incredibly committal to Chris Smith if he does get healthy. But again, I think with the nature of injuries, you're not just guaranteeing somebody a spot until you have all the information at your disposal. And that's about tenfold when you're as calculated as Mike O'Shea is. So like I said, I mean, it was a bit of a shocker to people just because of that touchdown, but it makes a lot more sense when you realize that he wasn't able to finish the game and he's currently nursing an injury.
Well, before we get to Thursday and how the team's going to look for the first real game against the Montreal Alouettes, how did things look today at practice? I imagine things really ramping up with a short week considering how many of these veterans didn't see the field over the course of training camp.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that was a lot of talk, for sure last week. Of course, you saw some guys trickle back in from the injury list, including guys like Patrick Neufeld made it back to camp in time. Nick Dembski was back at camp after missing a couple weeks there, so they logged a practice or two, and then to see all of them essentially besides Adam Bighill on the field today, including, as you mentioned, Brandon Alexander, Brady Oliveira, Nick Dembski was there, of course, the whole O-line, projected starting O-line, and again, without Adam Bighill, who will miss at least the first game of the season, it was certainly a welcoming sign for Mike O'Shea and the rest of the staff and the players. Of course, you mentioned it's a quick week. There's lots of moving pieces too on the coaching staff, right? I mean, you have Mike Miller taking over special teams, and that group was injury ravaged last year and didn't really perform up to snuff. And same kind of, or look at the defense. Richie Hall is still here. He's still a defensive assistant, but it's the Jordan Younger show right now. And, talking with Jordan Younger today, I mean, the identity that he wants to see with this defense is the word that he described was versatile. So, and talking to Willie Jefferson afterwards, just to get a better idea of what that, what that could look like or mean. It looks like the Bombers will be doing, I don't want to say a lot of disguises per se. Well, we'll have a lot of athletes, if you will, on defense that are able to, drop into coverage, do certain things, disguise things, be a little bit trickier, perhaps than in years past. So we'll see what happens with that. And, the way Willie Jefferson was explaining, given the short week here, was that if something was working and rolling, stick with it. If something wasn't sticking, maybe save that for a longer week down the road. So yeah, they are working on the basis of a short week, and obviously, camp's 3 weeks, but quickly went by, and now things matter. So lots of preparation here leading into Thursday's home opener, season opener against the Montreal Alouettes.
So let's start on the offensive side of the football. Who do we expect to be out there? Like new guys, and maybe let's focus on the receivers. We knew 4 of the 5. I mean, who do we think is going to actually be seeing live action right now at the bottom of that receiving depth chart?
Yeah, so Ontario Wilson seems to be the guy that has been, has earned that fifth receiver spot, being obviously an American. Not much. I thought he was okay in camp. I mean, you look at how he produced. I thought he did well, serviceable for sure. I mean, no one's expecting that spot necessarily to pop off the page in the game, be serviceable. I mean, he is essentially replacing Rashid Bailey, which, wasn't exactly a light year for him. If I'm correct, Rashid had about 6 touchdowns last year, and certainly chipped in, a fair amount, and particularly in the dirty areas for blocking and whatnot. So, but when you have guys like Kenny Lawler and Dalton Schoen and, Brady Oliveira as a running back and Nick Dembski, and you have a lot of options, I don't think you're going to be asked to do too much, but that's certainly that's where it fits there. Obviously, Eric Lofton, playing right tackle where Marcus Hardrick, left vacant. That's a big spot, and so there's a lot of trust there. And even working, even mentioning Brady Oliveira, he, big, if you heard him last year, he put a lot of credit to the offensive line and how, working with them, with, Jeff Gray gone, with, obviously Jamarcus Hardrick, as I mentioned, gone. There's some new faces there. So, he spent while he wasn't involved in camp, in the physical aspects of it, he spent the entire camp with the O-line, just, trying to make up for whatever would have been lost and learning in step with that group and ensuring that they're all on the same page when the real bullets start flying on Thursday.
Well, and then, switching over to the defensive side of the football, not only is there some holes to fill from players that weren't in around, I mean, you got 2 very important players that at minimum are not going to be in on Thursday night and potentially longer for the 6 games, starting with Adam Bighill.
Yeah, so Adam Bighill, I mean, we'll see if we can figure out what exactly his injury is. I'd be curious. Obviously we know Adam missed the Grey Cup last year. I'm not suggesting it's a calf injury, but I also don't know what we'll find out because he got injured in camp. I don't know if you need to release that information. And I don't have any inside information. So I'm curious on why, what exactly is ailing him and how long he'll be out. Obviously adding him to the 6-game injured list was, viewed as a bit of a money saver to a certain, because you can pull him off early. But at the same time, how long is he going to be out? We know for a fact he'll be out for Thursday. Could it be 2, 3, 4? Could it be the full 6 weeks? We'll just have to wait and see. Of course, if you look at the depth chart, which isn't out yet, but if you look at the depth chart that, the reporters have been coming up with and whatnot, and watching practice, it's clear that Shane Gauthier looks like he'll be, tapped on the shoulder to take over that role. And I think, familiarity with the defense certainly was the guy that they trusted in the Grey Cup last year and made some plays. Obviously, Bighill did play in that game, so it wasn't like he had, the full role there, but he has filled in admirably, in that position in previous years when Adam's been out for whatever a stretch of time. And so I know they trust him. He obviously understands the defense and what he needs to do. But yeah, it's I think with Adam Bighill, he brings more than just physical play and high football IQ. He brings leadership, obviously his relentlessness, all those intangibles, if you will. But that's not to sleep on Shane Gauthier. I think they'll be just fine with him taking over that spot for the near future.
Now, as far as special teams go, I know you did your best to say the Bombers maybe you found the returner. Did they do any returns today in practice? Who's the guy?
Looks like Myron Mitchell might be the guy, another receiver, a guy who, didn't have a ton of reps in preseason. His last game on against the Calgary had only had one return. It was on a kickoff, and it was for 26 yards, so it was the longest kickoff return in the game. So do with that what you will. Couple other additions. I think it's going to be one of those things where, I think they're putting up a little bit of a face or a front here in where they're at. Like, they feel like they have, the quality, options out there that, to use Mike O'Shea's words, guys who can do the job. Well, we kind of said the same thing last year when Janarian Grant wasn't available. And I'm not 100% sure that while you felt they could do the job, if they necessarily achieve that goal. So we'll see. I think it's, I think there's a bit of there's not a bit. I mean, whether guys want to admit it or not, it wasn't a good unit last year. It wasn't mind you, they did go through a handful of injuries, including to Mike Miller, their special teams goat that didn't play all last season. Now him taking over his first year as the coach. It's very interesting to see him talk as much as he has over the last 3 weeks. When he's a pretty quiet guy, and when you ask Mike O'Shea, I mean, he says some things don't need to be said. Guys just look at him and they know what to do. So had a chance to speak to Mike Miller after practice today. He's certainly enjoying the new role and is embracing it. And we all know his IQ when it comes to special teams might not be might just be the best in all-time history. Certainly has the all-time record for the most tackles. So he knows how to get his hands dirty, and he wants his group to be fast and physical. And with an underwhelming year last year, sets the stage for improvement this season, and the Bombers will need it. Will be really interesting this year with the team as a whole, because they have been obviously played very well over the last few years since winning their first Grey Cup in a long time in 2019. But I think they're going to need things to go right in a lot of different areas, including special teams. I don't think that they're going to be as dominant this year, and will be able to kind of get away, if you will, with some of the the looseness in coverage and lack of execution on special teams as we saw in 23.
Well, Hammers, we get into week one with the Bombers and Alouettes kicking off game one of the season here in Winnipeg. I was going to get to the Coolbet lines in a minute, and we still will for the Jays and some things, but let me pull these up right now. Coolbet has the Bombers as the Grey Cup favorite at plus 215. Next up is the Alouettes and BC Lions at plus 450. Argos at plus 550. Ticats 8-1. Riders 11-1. Red Blacks 12-1. Stamps 15-1, and the Elks 20-1. Are you in agreement with the book that the Bombers are the team to beat going into this season?
Yeah, we were talking about that at practice today. I think there's going to be a lot of parity this year. I mean, I do think the Bombers are the early favorites, and I think you're going to see that through the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, if all goes to plan for Winnipeg, and that they've benefited from that over the last few years. I mean, we all know just how much turnover there is in a typical CFL roster. The Bombers have been lucky enough over the years, obviously, to have that continuity. You've heard continuity over and over again in relationship to their sustained success over these last few years. And I think that's going to benefit them again this year. I think they might have to score a few more points on offense to make up for some of the, moving pieces on defense. But I do think that they'll benefit greatly from these last 3 weeks. They have a lot of the same faces. They have the same leadership group. There are a few extra bodies here that are going to need to learn how things are done here, but there's a vast majority of players, who have been in this building for at least a year, if not, several years, that will give kind of the Bombers the early edge, if you will. I think they're going to hit the ground running and maybe or be able to capitalize on some of the growing pains from other outfits, other teams, when who went over much different or much more turnover over the off season. But I do think that things will be very interesting, by Labor Day or by the, in the first couple months of the season. I think you're going to see teams, gelling, finding that chemistry, and whether you want to go with the list there. I think Edmonton could be maybe a surprise team. I think that because Chris Jones kind of admittedly said last year that his first year, he kind of messed up. He did too many things. He didn't get what he wanted to. He didn't have that foundation, and that's what he felt like he was achieving this last season in 23. So take that logic. You'd think he's building on something. Maybe this is the year. Certainly McLeod Bethel-Thompson, not saying he's a high-end talent, but I do think he brings a level of consistency behind center that could benefit that team and just composure. I think Trey Ford's got a bright future. I just don't think it's now. But anyways, I think they could be surprised. But the rest of that list is very interesting to me. I think Calgary is going to be tough sledding this year. I think, people are talking about Saskatchewan maybe being better than the last 2 seasons. Well, I'd hope so. I mean, they lost
the bar's pretty low.
The bar's pretty low when you lose the last 7 games of your last 2 seasons, and don't make the playoffs in a 9-game or 9-team league here. So so they're going to be a bit better. They might steal from the West, but I think it's a really interesting season this year because you can look at each team and you can certainly come up with a reason why they won't win it. And there's definitely some teams, and there are only a handful of teams right now that I can make an argument that they could. So I think, as I mentioned, I think once we get into a few months here, things are going to start showing themselves, and we're going to see a lot of parity. And it'll be interesting to see who progresses or who improves over the first couple months of the season.
Well, I'm with you, and I mean, I think it's clearly Winnipeg and BC, Saskatchewan, and potentially one of those other teams kind of pushing for that third spot. The East, though, especially with what's happened with the Argos and Chad Kelly over the offseason, I mean, do you have any lean on, never mind the playoffs, but just finishing atop the East at the end of 18 games? I mean, if I gave you $20 and said you have to bet this, who are you taking?
Wow, $20, that's a lot. I would say the Montreal Alouettes, just because I think, I really think it comes down to coaching. I felt like, they felt like the inferior team to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers of the Grey Cup last year. In a lot of ways they were, but much like I saw the Bombers in their 2019 playoff run, I saw that same quiet confidence in the Montreal Alouettes, and that comes from your coach. And Jason Moss is a good coach. He's a strong motivator. He's a good talent evaluator. Danny Machocha is a good GM. He proved that last year under very difficult circumstances. I think they're going to come in with a swagger. I don't see obviously the Toronto Argonauts doing as well with Dukes as they did with Chad Kelly. So, can Cameron Dukes carry that team? He did pretty well in the spot duty that he had. So, perhaps there's, still a fighting chance for them to finish first. But then you look at the other teams, I'm really, really intrigued with the Ottawa Red Blacks, of course, having Drew Brown as their guy right now. And having known Drew for the last, few years here, it's not going to be for a lack of preparedness. If he doesn't have a great year. And I do think he brings some stability to that position. They were ravaged with injuries last year, so I don't see them, leading the division, but I see them improving on the last couple of years. But, still, is Drew Brown the guy? We're about to find out. You go over to Hamilton and, much like I thought last year, I didn't think that Bo Levi Mitchell looked anything like the player he was in 2018. Hasn't for years. Certainly has had flashes, but then got injured early into last year. Not once, but twice. And to think that, Bo Levi Mitchell is going to come back this season and be healthier and better and, be able to withstand the rigors of an 18-game season, I just don't see it happening. Now, Taylor Powell's, is riding shotgun there, and he emerged as a quality quarterback, not anything close to elite, mind you, but a quality quarterback. Would he be able to pick up the slack if Bo can't last a few weeks here? It'll be interesting. I just don't see it. So I do look at Montreal as certainly the front runner in all of this. But Toronto was. Has good talent evaluators there. What will happen with Corey Mace being gone from the defensive side of the coach? And then add that to the Rough Riders. We saw Mike O'Shea come in here as a rookie head coach, finished 12-24 in his first 2 seasons. Can Corey Mace have, better success bringing a new culture to a team that desperately needed it? There's a lot of moving pieces there. So, you just look around the league in general, and it's just, it's tough to predict. And you look at the East here, and, it's a long-winded way of answering your question, Hus, but I just don't, I see with all teams kind of hitting the ground running, Montreal will probably be your early leader, but we'll see what happens by the end of it.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we're going to get into this tomorrow in the lock shop, but the Bomber win total is 13.
That's high.
Very high. I mean, I think 12 wins wins the West and probably makes you the number one team in the CFL. Like I'm not sure we'll have like the 3 and 15s. But I also don't think we're going to be looking at 13 or 14 win teams at the top of the table. Hey, before we go, quick thought on the final. Who you got, Edmonton or Florida?
I don't know, but I'm looking forward to this series. I mean, who do I got? I don't know. It's tough. I don't know.
It's tough.
It's tough.
I'm
just looking forward to these two teams punching each other in the mouth, to be honest with you. Like that's, I think Edmonton didn't necessarily get that from Dallas or the way they would have hoped for it. They're definitely going to get it, from Florida, who will be, not necessarily they wanted that, but you look at Evander Kane's comments and wanting to muck it up a bit more. That's where he finds his game. Well, I don't think Evander is going to have a trouble. Finding reasons to get pissed off against the Panthers. So I think it's a great battle. Is it Edmonton's time? I mean, it certainly feels like it in a lot of ways, just the way they played against Dallas. But how can you rule out Florida just with the way they played? They obviously have that experience from getting there last season, and all that comes with feeling that pain and not finishing, getting so close and not crossing the line. So it's going to be an intriguing one. If you had to ask me now which you are, I'd say I'm looking at probably Florida in 7. Paul Maurice wins the Stanley Cup.
Bring it on. It should be a great cup final, and it certainly will be entertaining to hear what Maurice has to say in his post-game pressers, which always were must-watch, but they've been pretty darn good over the course of the playoffs. Hammer, thanks so much for doing this and accommodating us today on a very busy day. I'll look forward to seeing you leading into a big Thursday night down at Princess Auto Stadium to get this season on the road.
Yeah, looking forward to this season starting off. Officially feels like summer. Always a pleasure, Huss. Never feels like working around when it ends up talking with you and your viewers. So appreciate it, and we'll do it all again next week.
Hey, by the way, just give yourself and the Freep team a quick plug. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of content on the upcoming season in the next few days over in the Winnipeg Free Press.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have full-on coverage of the Bombers this season. Really excited. Me, my colleagues, Taylor Allen, Mike Sawatsky, Josh Frey-Sam will get in on it, I imagine. You already saw work from Kenny. It's definitely looking forward to it. We're back to being the only English paper traveling in the CFL, so still very committed to covering the boys on the road and bringing you that content and whatnot. So certainly looking forward to diving into the season and getting a lot of football. As I have been doing some other stuff, some special projects over the winter that I look forward to kind of showing everybody in the next couple of weeks here. But definitely looking forward to getting back into full-time sports and swing of things and bringing another what hopefully is a long and successful year here in Winnipeg for CFL football.
Hey, you have an awesome one, dude. Appreciate it as always, and we'll look forward to catching up as we get closer. But always appreciate the work you do and the commitment that the paper has to football fans here in Winnipeg and the Canadian Football League overall. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot, Huss. Talk to you soon, bud.
Good stuff. There's our pal Jeff Hamilton at Jeff K. Hamilton on X, and make sure to check out tomorrow's Free Press, which be big analysis of practice, the projected lineup, and game 1, 7:30 p.m. Thursday night. Don't forget, Princess Auto Tailgate Zone gets going at 5:30, 2 hours before every game. All right, busy golf weekend. And let's get to our Breezy Bend golf report today. First of all, Bobby Mack, Robert McIntyre wins the Canadian Open with his dad on the bag. What a cool scene that was. And an amazing interview afterwards if you missed it. I mean, that was, you'd have to have a pretty black heart not to get warmed by that scene. Listen, congratulations to Corey Connors, who was the top Canadian. Mac Hughes had a great run as well. Not a great back nine. He was right there in the mix, as we got close to the turn yesterday. But it was the lefty Bobby Mack's time to win the Canadian Open, his first PGA Tour win. And bringing it back closer to home, our pal Brian Munns and the Golf Manitoba team were all over the Match Play Championships. And congratulations go out to Addison Karch of St. Charles, Rob Oliphant of Rossmere, and Marco Tristanjak of Elmhurst, who opened up the Golf Manitoba season, winning the Match Play Championship at Breezy Bend. Busy week, and of course, Breezy, a great host for the match plays, and also an incredible spot that you might want to make your long-term golfing home for you and your family. You can find out more by giving Breezy Bend a call. Ask for our pal Corey Johnson there, or check them out online at breezybend.ca. All right, we got into some CFL numbers there on the Coolbet Lines. Bombers are 6.5-point favorites and minus 286 money line favorites against the Alouettes. That's a big number. Considering we haven't seen the Bombers really together yet, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a much closer game than certainly the odds makers are counting on. I'll take the win, which would be nice. But the full lineup of CFL games are on up at Coolbet right now. If you just can't wait to dive into it for the weekend, games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, one game a day in the Canadian Football League this week. As far as the Cup Final goes, it is set. The Oilers and the Florida Panthers. And the Oilers, this opened up last night, right after the game. Panthers were minus 125 favorites. Oilers plus 105. Obviously, some money coming in on the Panthers. That line is moved now to minus 132 for Florida. And the Oilers plus 110 underdogs. Plus 200 for the series to go 7. But they've got series spread right now. Total games up. Exact final. For instance, if you like the Oilers to win in 6, that is 5-1. Oilers sweep 12-1. Oilers in 7 plus 550. And again, you can also bet the final series of the final game of the series will be played in Florida's minus 145, Edmonton's plus 105, as well as the series leader after game 3. In the next day or so, we'll start to get Stanley Cup Final props for goals and assists for individuals as well. As far as the game 1, Edmonton plus 120, Panthers minus 141. That game, of course, we have to wait all the way till Saturday night. But tonight in the majors, Blue Jays have won 5 of 6. But they're moving up a few weight classes, taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Gosman's on the hill today. This one is basically a pick'em. Baltimore minus 110, Jays minus 108. The total in the game is 7. I'm riding with the Jays tonight, and I also do like the Cincinnati Reds, who was a pick'em. Now they're a slight favorite, minus 111 against the Rockies. Now, if you are a cool better, if you did that one by yourself and just wanted to bet the Reds and Jays to win, it would be plus 266. We got a little ride with Huss exclusive today in the Lock Shop Partner Parlay, and we got a great boost on this. Jays and Reds both to win, boosted up to plus 315. So if you're looking for a little action tonight and want to ride with me on the Jays and Reds, a 2-gamer, both teams to win, we got a great boost from the fellas at Coolbet up to plus 315. That is going to do it for the Coolbet Lines. But hey, if you haven't played a Coolbet, first of all, join us on the Lock Shop every day at noon before Winnipeg Sports Talk over on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. We'll do a full CFL show tomorrow with Matt Iwanek going through some of our favorite props, win totals for all the teams. And of course, use the promo code WST when you make that first deposit for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. We will get into the Memorial Tournament on the weekend. And tomorrow we should have an idea about, if Eric Howardchuk, Aaron Cockrell, Braxton Kuntz, all who are in the final round of U.S. Open qualifying, potentially qualified for the major coming up in a couple weeks. Should be a lot of good stuff. But tomorrow, all about the CFL. Tomorrow in the Lock Shop. Michael Remis, we were talking about, it's a beautiful night to get out to the ballpark to see the Gold Eyes. Also might be a great night to get out to Assiniboia Downs to see the Ponies.
Yeah, and it looked like a great event at the Downs this weekend, Huss. It was Rib Fest.
Yes.
Out there. Nice to see some just really great looking barbecue here in the city for Rib Fest. But yes, back at the Downs, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, starting now?
All year long. This Wednesday will be the first Wednesday night race card. But from now until Labor Day, count on it. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 7:30 post time for race number 1. And we got 7 big races tonight. 2 and 3 are smaller fields, so I've got a little sprinkle on 1 and then bets for 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, I haven't been winning, so I went back to my keep it simple method and just stuck with winners tonight, and I have 1 exacta box. So that's what I'm...
Well, let's get into it. You got race 1?
No, I have 4, 5, 6, and 7 on this card.
I just threw a $2 on horse number 7 in race number 1. Bit of a longer shot. JJ's American Diva. So there you go. 2 on that. What do you have for race number 4?
I have horse 2 to win. Can you hear me now? Throw down $5. A bit of a longer shot. Not a program selection or even an AI smart pick, but I do like Can You Hear Me Now?
I'm rolling
as a
with the
bit of a
AI
longer
smart
shot
picks,
as well.
actually. I'm doing a exactor box for 8 Victory Lane, who's the favorite, and number 3 Morrow Outlaw. $2 exactor box, so that's a $4 wager for race number 4. What do you got for 5?
I got another one, a horse 2 again. Del Vecchio. I was shocked that Del Vecchio, a veteran at the track, has not a program selection or a smart pick, has had success in the past. I'm a big Del Vecchio guy, so I got 5 on Del Vecchio to win.
I took a couple of the favorites, the program selection and the AI smart picks, like 5 and 8. $3 exacta box. So it's a $6 bet for totalizer and run today. What do you got for race 6?
6, I am rocking to win horse 5, Hyper Holiday. I'm going a bit safer. That's the AI smart pick here. Big field, Hyper Holiday.
I'm going triactor on this one. I'm going to take the 2 favorites, Tree Hugger, number 3, and your horse, Hyper Holiday. And then I'm always a sucker for the wit horses. Touch Wit Class is number 9. So I'm throwing 3, 5, and 9 into a $1 triactor box, which leaves me $4 for or actually $2 for the final race, and that was why I put the 2 on. Put the $2 on the first race. What do you got for race 7?
Yeah, there's a couple classic ones in here. I see some familiar names, but I'm going with an exacta box. Liking It Twisted and Lady Cop. These are the 2 favorites in this 9, now 8 horse field. $3 exacta box, horse 1 and horse 8.
Yeah, and I threw in, I've got 8 to win. I did a $2 triactor box. So basically 8 has to win. And then 3 and 4. I believe that's what I put, 3 and 4. Let me just make sure that that's right. Yes, 8 with 3 and 4. 3 is our and a favorite that we've had before, not one of the program selections, Dixie Moe.
Yeah.
Back, and then Kate's Princess. So 8 to win with 3-4 or 4-3. That was a $2 bet. Didn't have enough to do the full triacta box, but Lady Cop's a pretty solid favorite. We'll see if we can get the other 2 in and make something happen. Again, if you do want to play with us, watch the guys on YouTube. They do a great job, Kirk and Stretch, every night with great picks, their selections, handicapping as well. And that goes live. I believe 6:30 they get going. Bit of a pregame show. They go over everything, if they give you some thoughts on it, and then in between the races, we'll update everybody on who they're liking and what they're doing. And of course, you can open an account at hpibet.com if you want to bet remotely on Assiniboia Downs and other tracks around the world. This is a good night to see some baseball. Gold Eyes tonight. Watch some of the Jays against the Baltimore Orioles. maybe a little WWE Raw ream, and because we do have to wait a little bit before finally getting to this the final series of the National Hockey League, and even Thursday for the NBA.
Yeah, what am I going to do? With all this time off, I do have a hockey game scheduled tonight, so I can check that off, maybe catch up on watching some shows, or, yeah, as you said, watching baseball, heading out to the ballpark. We're going to have to do a lot as we wait for the Stanley Cup Final, which I think has a lot of intrigue. So more than care more, I think, the McDavid factor, the Canada factor, Paul Maurice. I think just two really, really good teams involved. Yeah. I mean, Florida, back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. You haven't seen that since the Penguins in 2008, 2009 from an Eastern Conference team. Didn't Tampa get there? I remember reading that, but now I'm thinking, didn't Tampa go back-to-back? Or
I know Paul Maurice is the first coach to go back-to-back to the Cup Final with a new team.
With a new team,
okay.
Years. Maybe there's so many narratives being tossed out, Huss. Like, I don't know if you know, or we talked about this. Do you know what's the farthest distance?
Yes, I did see.
Did you see that?
I did see that. Slightly longer than Boston, Vancouver, but not by much.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, it might have been the new coach. I don't know what that 2008, 2009 for Pittsburgh, because Tampa made it twice and Pittsburgh won twice. That doesn't make any sense. I read the wrong thing. There's a lot of stuff out there. Corey Perry, I think Corey Perry, we want to see him win the cup for the second time in his career.
No,
we want to see him lose again.
Like, if you just asked me at the start of the year, would you like to see Corey Perry lose again in the Cup Final? I'm like, yeah, for sure. That won't put me over to support the Panthers in this one. I'm having a real tough time, like, even figuring out who I think is going to win. Never mind who I want to win. We are confused hockey fans right now. Do we have to suck it up and cheer for the Oilers right now? Or do you cheer for the Panthers with a guy like Matthew Tkachuk that most hockey fans can't stand, albeit they respect him and they would love him on their team? Good thing is we've got some time to figure that out. We've got a full week, but I can't wait to talk more CFL. And hopefully we're going to look to see if we can get Marshall Ferguson on to get his thoughts on the upcoming season. I think Dave Naylor is going to join us as well on Wednesday. A whole bunch of our regulars as well. And I am glad we don't have to wait until Thursday or Friday ream for the game. It's great to have the game day Thursday and then a Friday show where we can talk all about it. And then, of course, Monday, get back to everything else happening in the league after the Bombers and the Alouettes kick things off in the rightful way, a Grey Cup rematch on game number 1 of the season.
Yeah, really pumped for the CFL. I got to start getting my, digging into what's going on with the fantasy. I know we're going to have power rankings on our Instagram this week. And we are approaching 5,000 followers on Instagram. So a link in the description. Help us reach that goal. But yeah, a couple good matchups. Hamilton at Calgary. It was that Bo Levi in Calgary. Didn't they not do that last year? And everyone was mad?
No. Yeah.
And we didn't see Andrew Harris here or Paul LaPolice here when he was coaching Ottawa. So some of the scheduling
misses.
There's some big misses. But we do have the rematch, the first game of the Grey Cup. That's great. And we do see BC here pretty early on too. I'm looking forward to that match. But yes, Saskatchewan and Edmonton. How's Edmonton going to rebound? And BC and Toronto. BC big favorites against Toronto. I guess they got some serious questions now at quarterback. So CFL season underway. Looking forward to just finding out now as Nick Dembski will join you on Wednesday as well to tee up the season. So
right on.
Some exciting
Always
stuff.
Love getting Nick on. I had a good chat with him a couple weeks ago, just at the stadium for that Taste of the Bombers event. So we'll look forward to getting Nick on and teeing up the opener on Thursday night at Princess Auto Stadium. That is going to do it for us today. Thanks for Bill Lindsay's time to join us. Dennis Bernstein of the Fourth Period, and of course, Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. Make sure to join us tomorrow. We'll have lots more in the upcoming CFL season, the Cup Final, and the latest on all goings on in and around the Winnipeg Jets and Winnipeg sports in general. Have a great one tonight, folks. Again, doesn't look like it's going to be a nice Tuesday or Wednesday. Great night to get out to the ballpark or just get outside. But whatever you do, join us tomorrow live at 1 if you can on YouTube, and the podcast right afterwards. The show is finished wherever you get your favorite pods. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Adios. See you tomorrow, 1 p.m. right here on YouTube.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.